Thanks for joining me. I'm Anthony from Anthony's Creative Classroom, and I'm here in Ohio. So I'm going to move this out of the way into some of the things we're playing with tonight. So we are going to explore the world of Wendell. Wendell is the newest release from Peddlers Den. Peddlers Den is a stamping company from Alabama. They have an online store, they host retreats, and I have been traveling the circuit with them this year. We were just in Novi at the Great Lakes Mega Meet. Our next month we'll be at Stampin' Scrapbook Expo in Edison, New Jersey, and the following week after that we will be in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Tanya from Peddlers Den is keeping me pretty busy. Peddlers Den offers scenic stamps, as well as other varieties of stamps, including flowers, holidays. There's some fun caricature people, and a whole lot more. They also have designer series paper, dies to match their stamps, ephemera to match their stamps in their paper. They have their own line of ink and tools and all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to look at how to use Wendell tonight and do some coloring techniques with pencils, Tombow markers, Copic markers, and I'm going to show you some other ways to use the stamps other than just on a card. And then we'll touch base on the cards. We're also going to tonight work with one of the scene building stamp sets so I can show you how I do skies. I had several people ask me about skies on Facebook. This is Wendell, and Wendell likes to go sledding. Wendell has a girlfriend. I'm not sure if she has a name. In my head, I call her Wendy, so I don't know if that's right. So I have Wendy and Wendell. So Wendell's available in photopolymer, also in red rubber in a larger size than this stamp, in the large one in the set. And the large one in the set measures 2 3/4 inches high. And Wendell is only going to be with us till the end of the year. So Wendell is a special offering from Peddlers Den for 2026. Like Frosty, Wendell will be gone and not coming back. There are other snowman stamps within the line that can work alone or in scenes, and we will visit snowmen again at some point. What Peddlers Den has done is they've created a bundle of these 3 stamps. If you go on their website later and you just do a search for Wendell, all the individual stamps will come up, red rubber or photopolymer, as well as the bundle. And I believe the bundle saves you 10% across all 3 stamps. So I'm going to show you the cards real quick that I created with these stamps. This one is Wendell along with his girlfriend. This one was done with colored pencils, 3 different greens. Then I took my blender pencil and it had something on it, so I got a little bit of yellow into the tree. So I just embraced a little bit of yellow and added some peach over top of the green. So it kind of deadened the brightness of the green. And I did some clouds, and in all of the points in the stamp here, I put some glue and some glitter. I also did some glitter along the lines in the stamp around the ground and under the snowman. And I tried not to make these Christmas. And when we visit Wendell again later in the year, Wendell will be all about Christmas. If you also follow Peddlers Den and go onto their Facebook group and join that group, Peddlers Den Making a Scene, and it's Macon. It's not, there's no G in Macon. And you can join that Facebook group. You can see what other people are doing. You can post things that you have done on your own as well. This is the card I made with Wendell coming down the sled. Let me get the paper back behind it. You can really tell I've used him several times over the last couple weeks. So he's stained pretty good from an archival pad. Archival ink will make your stamps look a little purple. It's not going to affect the stamp. This ink, the type of ink it is, it just stains photopolymer. This one was done with tumble markers. Did some glitter again and some highlighting, and I'm going to explain how I did the highlighting of the snow part of the stamps as we continue on tonight. And I also used one of the scene sets, which is really well loved, to do a scene card, and the small Wendell stamp I used on this card in the forefront. And I also used the Let It Snow image from this same stamp set, and I did Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. And what I'm going to show you tonight along with this is how I did the sky in this scene stamp. This stamp set is called Peace on Earth, and you can tell that it is really, really well loved. It's stained, it's dark, it doesn't come clean anymore. I'm not going to show you how this kit works today. I am going to show you how I colored the sky, because I already pre-stamped this. So, and every time you stamp it, no two are going to look alike. So here's what I did the first time, here's what I did the second time. And I'll explain a little bit of what I did with this to make this scene, but we're not going to actually stamp this scene tonight. So that's Wendell. And Wendell is a fun guy. He can just be really cute. Like I said, I did not color him for Christmas. I colored him more wintry. And we're going to not go into Christmas mode today. The first card I'm going to make for you, I'm going to replicate this card. So this is using Winter Wendell. And Winter Wendell, again, comes with a larger Wendell stamp, a smaller one, and Let It Snow, and hats off to you. So I'm going to show you how I made this card. And obviously, there's no Christmas involved in here. This one's very easy. You can change the yellow to red, and then you have a Christmas card. So we're going to work on this one first. So let me get my supplies together. I'm going to start out with the black paper, and we're going to stamp the small stamp. So let me get it on my block. I noticed when we were doing some make and takes last week, and we had some problems with some stamping where we ended up with air bubbles under our stamps. So once you figure out what stamp you're going to use and you get it on your block, and you can do this with a stamp position or two once you get it put down. Let me put this on here so you can see it a little better. Black is better. Let me zoom in too. So especially with a big stamp like one of these, this is all one solid stamp. So when you put it on, and you can look, the first time you go to stamp it, I usually stamp on a piece of scrap paper. First I want to make sure there's nothing stuck to my stamp from cleaning it the previous time. But what I do is I'll hold the stamp on the bottom of the block, peel the stamp, and then roll it onto the block. That way I try and ensure that I don't have a lot of air bubbles underneath my stamp. And sometimes you can see, if you flip it over, that you have an air bubble. And that's true whether it's a photopolymer stamp or a red rubber stamp. If it's just the rubber and you're using the Grip It product, or if it's a cling mounted stamp, you can usually see an air bubble underneath the block, and then you just hold the base of the stamp down, pull it off, and walk the stamp back onto the block. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stamp with Versamark, and I'm going to stamp just randomly. Put the stamp head over here. I'm just going to stamp randomly on my paper. You can stamp part of it off. It doesn't really matter. So I just want to create a background. So now I'm going to take some white embossing powder, and we're going to heat emboss our background. And if you see that there's some little white embossing powder flakes on here, you can get a brush and clean that off if you want. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to be putting a panel over top of it. And I keep my embossing powder in these throwaway containers because I can try and pretty much contain my embossing powder into the container. Let me zoom out a little bit. And grab my heat gun, and sorry about the noise for a minute, but we're going to heat this up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I tried doing this earlier today with just white ink and it just was not cooperating. So I decided to go with the embossing powder. So I have that, and I'm just going to attach this to my yellow so that this piece is done. And I have no idea why I picked yellow and green. That's just what I grabbed. So you can do this with whatever colors you want. Now I'm going to stamp a larger Wendell on my ATC card. And I'm going to stamp him with Memento ink. Ooh, that's not good. Let me wipe this puddle out of here. I re-inked my pad. So let me just clean that puddle out of there real quick and not press so hard. And the reason I'm using Memento ink is because I'm going to color him with Copic markers. No matter what other kind of ink pad is out there, people tell you that you can color an alcohol marker with it. I don't have good luck, and every time I use a Memento ink pad to color with alcohol markers, I have no worries. I don't have to think about it or anything like that. So I have a variety of markers here, and I'm going to show you some of how I color and highlight images. So again, I'm going to zoom back in so you can see my coloring. Okay, let me refocus. Okay, so again, I'm doing green and yellow just like I did the first time here. I'll put this right here so then you can see what I'm doing. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this one up. I'm going to do yellow on the hat instead of green. I'm going to color the band of the hat. And then I'm going to come down and color the places in my scarf. And you can see where I didn't get a real crisp image around here. So all I have to do is take a micron pen in black with a very light touch and just come back and fill that in a little bit. And no one else knows that I didn't get that whole part stamped right there. I would suggest you either use with a micron pen a number 3 or a number 1. And the smaller the number, the smaller the tip. So then I'm going to come in and grab my green, and I'm going to color this part of his scarf. And I don't do big detail coloring. So I'm going to come in and get his arms real quick. And if a little bit goes outside, it goes outside. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so when we have things like on a snowman, or if you have a Santa or something that has a dark, like this image comes out in black, what I like to do so I can maintain the detail of the stamp, I'll take a dark gray instead of a black and color, because this way I still keep the detail of the stamp. And I can do, because Copic markers are build up, you can add a couple extra layers to make it a little darker, but I'm still going to keep the detail from the stamp is still going to show up. So if I colored that with black, you would see nothing and it would just be too intense. So that's why I use a dark gray a lot of times versus a black. Okay. When we stamp something like snow or things that are white, like a snowman, we still want to make it look like we did something to him and we just didn't leave him plain. I'm taking a real light gray marker. You can do this with a colored pencil, which I'll show you later. You can do this with a Tombow marker, anything that's real light. We're just going to do some highlighting on him. So we're just going to do partially around, just to add a little bit of highlight to him. And I have to remember you all are here and not just color and forget that you're here. So I'm going to do a little bit between the layers of him as well. So that just gives you a little bit more detail in the stamp. The other thing I will do is come back where there's stippling in the middle and just do little dots on some of it. I don't do it to all of it, just to add a little bit of texture to him without, you know, getting out glitter and all kinds of other stuff. So we're just going to do a little bit of texture to him to just show that we did more than just leave him plain. If you take a look at the finished card, I did a little shading around him so he wasn't just hanging out on the page, blank. So you can see a little bit, it pops him up off the page just a little bit. We're going to work on that. And what I did is, this is my favorite Copic marker for doing shading and outlining. It's BG10 and it's called Cool Shadow. And we're going to do this real quick, just coming around him. And just a little tiny line. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because I've got a finished one, but I want to show you what I did. Okay. So you can kind of see here, excuse me, a little bit of a cough today. So you can see here where this light blue is around him. Well, I didn't want it to be so intense. So I took my Zero blender and I pulled away from that image, that shading that I did. Because the blender acts as more of an eraser than a blender. And if you pull away, it thins it out towards the white. And I don't want to just go like this, which you can, but if you pull it out a little bit, it pulls that color away just a little bit. So you can see, comparing these side by side, what it looks like just plain and what it looks like with that little halo around it. That's how I would color. And then I took, let me get a piece of scrap paper real quick. And around the edge, I went back to that shadow marker and I took the chisel end and had part of it on my card and part of it off and just pulled around to outline it so I didn't have to add another paper layer, and it just gave some finish to that edge. And then that got attached to the hologram and attached to the green and then just attached to my card. And you can put it wherever you want. You can put it in the middle. I chose to put it down this way a little bit so more of my background showed up. So let me zoom out a little bit. You can put it, this one I put down here so I had more of this showing. But you can actually put it right in the middle. You can put it off to the side this way. You can do this however you want to do it. There is no right or wrong. That's using the Winter Wendell with the 2 different size stamps. So, and like I said earlier, there is a rubber Wendell that's larger than this. Again, if you're interested in the Wendell stamps, you don't have to worry about the stamp numbers. You can just do search for Wendell and anything Wendell is in will come up. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next card. And the other thing is, on this card, I popped up this layer. So it's up to you. You can pop it up, you can put it flat, you can add a ribbon, you can add some glitter. There's no right or wrong to this, but it is much easier to do this with the Versamark and the white embossing powder versus the white ink pad. I even heat set the white ink pad and it still rubbed off all over everything. So that is that card. we are going to do a couple of things with Wendell sledding. Let me pull that original card in again. And I have one of these, so I'm going to show you how I did some of this detail, but then we're going to do something else other than a card with this stamp, just to show you that you don't always have to make a card. Okay, let me get my pre-stamped one of this. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of the coloring. Sorry, I'm just grabbing a light blue marker. Okay, I have my sled. So I'm going to color my sled and just make sure I go around his hand. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of big detail coloring here. So I do kind of what I call scribble color. I come back, I come get a base of color down, and then I come back and build up my color. And I don't always just use the same shade of brown. I would come and add some brown on the edges to define the edge of the sled. Just to give an edge there. Come in and get the little screw marks in the front. And I could take and switch to the smaller end of my marker and go over the hatch marks in the stamp to add some more detail. And it doesn't have to be right on those images either. So as close as you get to it. So there's not any real right or wrong. Like I said, I'm not doing big detail stamping here. You can see in here that I've done a little detail work to the snow hill. And I want to show you how I did that. Because if we just left it plain, it just looks unfinished. I mean, you could come through here with your glue and add glitter to it, which I did, but I wanted to add some more detail and lift and give some dimension to those lines on the stamp. So all I did was take my gray marker, and if you're using colored pencils, you do the same thing with a colored pencil. If you're using an alcohol marker, you can do the same thing there too. And I'm just coming right over the lines in my stamp. Just to add some detail and highlight that image. And it helps lift it up off the page. And you can see the difference here where I didn't do anything yet to here where it adds a little depth to the stamp. So then I'm going to continue and I'm going to do that to my whole card where the toboggan hill is. The other thing that's important to do is if you miss a spot, don't go back and get it again because you're going to create, I'll do it on the back here. If I'm doing this here and I miss a spot and I come back, it's going to give me a darker spot where the marker overlapped. So you're better off just leaving the gap instead of coming back again. So I have this lighter gray marker and I'm going to do his hat real quick. We're going to add, probably too bright, but that's what I pulled out. So We're going to add some green to his hat. So I guess he's snowing on St. Patrick's Day. And then I'm going to come back with my gray again. And this one I am going to put a couple layers to make it a little darker. But this way I still see the detail from the stamp in his hat. So you see that? In here, I can still see the detail from the stamp. And that's what's really important. And because I'm just playing on this, I'm going to show you what happens when you use a black. Because I've got the gray one here on the finished card. But I want you to see what happens when you grab a black. It just ends up way too dark. So see the difference between using the gray and sealing this? And then this just jumps right off the page too much because it's so intense. So that's why I like to do the gray. The extra snow that's flying from the toboggan, just so it had some difference to it, I came in with my blue marker and just kind of highlighted it a little bit. I didn't color it completely in, just kind of like the gray, I just kind of outlined it and did a little bit of shading on it just to make it hop off the page. Now I'm not saying you can't color it all the way in, but I like leaving some of the white paper behind because it is snow. And when I get to the stones on this one, I chose to make them gray. But on here, I could add gray to them again, but make them darker. Same thing with the stones. I wouldn't want to color them in with black because they would just disappear like the hat. I mean, even though I did this a little darker, you can still see some of the detail from the stamp. And that's no matter what kind of stamp we're using, we want to see that detail the artist has put into the stamp. That's the other thing with hatch lines and stuff. The artist has told you where to add the highlights already, which is a great thing versus just having an open stamp that you're just going to solidly color that is just flat. We're going to take this off to the side. Now I have a smaller piece of it. I didn't stamp the whole thing. So I'm going to take my colored pencils with this one, and I'm just going to do some quick coloring here real quick. However you want to color him. I'm not even going to pay much attention because I have a finished one of these. So I'm just going to put some color down. And this one kind of ended up being Christmassy because of what I did with it. Okay, so there. Now, because my colored pencil is kind of rough, see if I can zoom in one more time. No, that's as far as I can zoom in. See how my pencil is not real smooth? Let me hold it up. See how it's kind of rough? I'm going to take a colorless blender and I'm going to smooth that out by making circular marks. And with the colorless blender, I can push that color into the crevices and places I missed. And just do, it's the same kind of pencil as these other Prismacolor pencils, but it's just wax, it's just clear, there's no color to it at all. So in between changing colors, I just scratch off a little bit on my paper. So I can come back here now into my green and clean that up a little bit. and push that color where I want it to go. This also helps you add a little highlighting to what you're doing. And it just smooths that color out a little bit. So I colored in just like this middle part right here. Did the same thing with the snow and the sled and the whole thing that we did, just like this one. But then I took this and I die cut the center out with one of my nesting dies. And I created an ornament on a wood disc. So just because I have this big stamp doesn't mean I have to use the whole thing with what I'm doing. So I just used the middle of it, and I used a brush and some Ranger matte medium to glue this to the wood, and then I put this on the back of the paper, stuck it down, and then painted a layer on top. And it took like 5 minutes for it to dry. That's something else you can do besides just making a card. And the wood discs I bought on Amazon, and I just drilled the hole in it myself for the cord. With the other Wendell stamp, Wendell is with his girlfriend. So again, I'm going to use alcohol markers for this. And we're going to do some extra things with this one that we didn't do before. And I can see a spot where I missed stamping, so I'm going to come in right away and fix her arm. More here. So I'm going to use a lighter green on my trees. And when I'm coloring my trees that have the points in them, I pull from the points into the image so that I kind of can stay in the lines. The other thing I do is I just do long strokes instead of, coloring. Because as I'm doing the long strokes, I can add my own shading. I'll get another one with this color. And I'm constantly moving my paper around. So especially if I'm using alcohol markers, I'm not going to sit here and color like this. I want to do longer strokes and let the color build up. So I want to add some detail into these trees. So I'm going to take the chisel end of my marker and I'm just going to come right below the other lines of the stamp to add some shadowing and just tap. And the reason I'm using the chisel end is I'm just using the point of the chisel because I want to control where I'm putting that color because I'm creating shadow between the layers of the branches. Okay, so we'll do that again over here. Not a big tree, so I'm just kind of going to do a little bit. And then here I've got all these shadow lines again to come under. And this is some of what I wanted to show you tonight. When you're using these stamps, that you can come in and add shadow very easily to your tree. So I'm going to take this same marker I just added shadows with and color another tree. So that adds a little bit of continuity to my colors. When I take the shadow color and build it into something else. So I'm just going to come down and fill in my tree. And where my tree goes off the page, I just continue my strokes off the page, because part of this is going to get cut off, and then I don't end up with a blank spot under my tree. Okay, so now I'm going to take a third shade of green on this one, and I'm going to come and do some highlighting. Actually, that one's not dark enough, so let me grab this. But you want to do your shading with the chisel end of your marker. And you don't have to get every single spot. So that just adds some dimension and life to your tree instead of just having, you know, a flat colored image. And again, I'm going to come in and get my hat with a gray. And then I'm going to take even a lighter gray, and I'm going to come in and do the shading on my snowman to add some dimension to my snowman. And again, where the stippling is, that's where you want to put your shadowing, even under the snowman. So let the stamp do the work for you. I mean, this is a very, very light shade of gray, but it still shows up. And again, with an alcohol marker, it's going to build up. You just have to remember what you've stamped with to do the right kind of ink for an alcohol marker. And like I said earlier, I never venture beyond a memento marker. And it doesn't have to be a black memento marker. I could stamp with brown or green or whatever I wanted, and your alcohol marker is not going to bleed. It's not specific to just the black. Okay, so this became this. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you tonight is how I did the sky on my scenic card. Okay, and back up just a little bit. And I do my skies with a sponge because I am very, very heavy-handed. So let me pull some ink pads out here real quick. And I'm going to also show you a little bit how I did my foreground. I am using a couple of blending brushes. Actually, I need to bounce out a little bit more. So I am going to use a couple blending brushes and a Q-tip. And I just want to I'm going to show you the colors that I use when I do my sky. So I'm using a light blue, a dark blue, and a couple shades of purple to do my sky. And I'm just using those sponges that look like a hockey puck that we all cut up into a bunch of pieces. So I don't use a sponge dauber because, again, I'm heavy-handed and I'll get that stupid dot that will never, ever go away. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do the ground first. So I'm taking the ground, and and I basically go for the color, not because of the product. I go for the color of the ink. So I am using a Distress tumbled glass, and I grabbed one that doesn't have a lot of ink in it. I'm going to ink up my brush, tap some off, and I'm just going to do a little circular motion right over everything that's I've stamped, because everything is stamped in black and I don't have any big details. I'm slowly building up my ground. And I don't want to get it too bright because then it's hard to tone down. Okay, so I've got quite a bit of blue on there. I want just a little bit more here so that you can see what happens when I add the next color on top of it. Okay, that's all I'm going to add to the base of that. You can already see compared to the sky how just that light little dusting of that Distress ink changes the color. So now I'm going to go into Memento and I'm going to grab a gray. And this color is called London Fog. And this one I'm going to ink up my brush, and I am going to brush off. And I'm going to come back and do the same thing and just tone that blue down with some gray. And this pad's so dry I don't even really need to stamp a lot of it off. So I just want to tone down that blue with some gray. And if I get a little bit of this up into my sky, no big deal, because I still have to color my sky. It's not a problem if I get some of that up there. Okay, so there's my ground cover. And I want to try and blend some more of this out because I got a dark spot of gray here. But I will show you how to correct that. Okay. I am done with, for the most part, I am done with the ground. That quick. So now I created, there's another stamp that goes with this for this scene, and it's the snowbank. If you order the kit, the snowbank comes with it. If you just order the stamp set alone, you have to order the snowbank separately. And I will link those stamp sets as well as the kit information in the comments when I move this video to YouTube tomorrow. It's just too hard to put the comments in, and my videos only stay on Facebook for 30 days and then they disappear. So if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would encourage you to do that so the videos will always be there for you to go back and look at in the future. With the snowbank stamp, I had to create a mask with the Eclipse tape, and you've seen me use this before when I did a video before with Sean from Manly Made Minute and we were doing some scenic stamping. I will also link the tape, the masking tape, in the comments of the video. And you can see I've used this multiple times. As long as it's still sticky, you don't have to make a new one. And we'll go over masking again at some point. So I want to put the mask right below the edge on the top of my stamp. So I'm going to line this up right here. Along that. And it's really not sticking well, so this is probably going to be the last time I can use this one. Now I'm going to start with my, didn't stick at all. I'm going to be bad and just put a little bit of tape on the two ends, so I don't have to take the time to make a new mask. And that'll hold it down. Okay, so I'm going to start with my lightest blue first, and I am going to tap in my ink pad, rub the sponge a little bit to get some color in it, and I'm just going to start tapping. That didn't hold it at all. Give me one. We're gonna rough it. I'll just hold it down because then I have to get out another stamp and make a new mask. So I'm just gonna hold it. And I'm just going to get this blue layer down on my card. And if I get darker spots, it's okay because I'm building up color, and that just adds to the texture of the sky. And I can go right over any of the trees and anything in the sky because again, they're all black. And I want to push a little bit harder to get a couple of clouds in my sky. Plus it balances out where I have a blob over here. Okay, so I'm done with that layer. I'm going to go to the dark blue. In this case, I'm using Nautica blue from Memento. And I'm just going to repeat the process, but with the darker color, I have to be aware of how much pressure I'm using. And I also want to make sure I get over my trees and things sticking up so I don't create a big halo. And if you want it to be more of a night sky, then put more of the darker color down. But because I'm coming right over the trees and everything, it covers up and fills in those spaces between the branches. And I can tell you no two skies will come out the same. Okay, so there's my dark color. Now I'm going to go into the lighter of the purples. This one is called Lilac. And again, as I get into these darker colors, the less color I want to have on my sponge. And the purples help make it look like it's twilight, sun setting. Just adds another little dimension to my sky. Okay, so now I'm going to come into my darker purple, which is called Elderberry, and even be more light-handed. This is going to tone down some of the lilac. And my horizon should be a little bit lighter. I obviously have more color over here, but I'm going to show you what we're going to do to help lighten that up. Okay, so now my fifth color actually is going to be black. And I have a very, very tiny sponge. And I'm just going to do around my edges with the black, just to kind of frame out my image. And I am going to pull just a little bit of it in to help tone down that lilac a little bit more. And I'm going to take off my mask. And there's my sky and my ground on the scenic stamp. Now I want to add one more thing to my sky, and I am going to add a little bit more down here where I have this darker shadow. I need to grab a scrap of some black paper real quick. So I'm taking an oversized Q-tip and my white pigment ink, and I'm tapping in the ink, and I'm going to tap most of this ink off, and then I'm going to come in and drag some of this white to lighten everything back up. Because if I have some dark spots, I need to lighten them up. See what happens when I don't rub it off, but easily fixed. I'm going to take my micron pen and draw lines right back in from my stamp. And it doesn't have to be exact, but it puts back the detail I just lost. So it's just adding some black lines back in over the stamped image, just to put some of that detail back that I took away. So on the sky, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tap off. I'm going to create some clouds in my sky. Because even at night, we can still see the clouds. And this also helps lighten up some of the darker spots we ended up with, just by swirling some of this white ink into the sky. And I can come back with my other ink if I got too much and just sponge right back over it if it ended up being too much white. That's how I created the sky. For those of you who on Facebook asked about the sky. So here's this card, and here it is with Wendell added to it and matted. This will also get cut down because it's a quarter sheet of paper to fit my card. If any weirdness or anything that I don't like around the edges, I can cut that off. And Wendell is very easy to cut out. There is no die for Wendell because he's only visiting us for a short time. So again, the stamps are available at peddlersden.com. Let me write that down real quick, and you can do a screenshot because I forgot to make a sign. And if you search for Wendell, everything will come up that is related to Wendell, whether it's the individual stamps, the rubber stamp, the bundle. And I encourage you to check out the website and also go on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Making a Scene, Peddlers Den. So that's the YouTube. And the Facebook is just Making a Scene. That's all I have for you tonight. I'll check the comments later, see if anybody else puts any questions down that I can answer. And if you think of anything later, send me a message, post it in the comments. Like I said, the video will be updated to YouTube tomorrow, and my YouTube channel is Anthony's Creative Classroom. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.